Welcome back to Way Past Due. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. Tonight we got a very special guest, a howling wolf that can't wait to see Otis Taylor in the Hall of Fame. Let's get to it.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been on the highway, and in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low.
Welcome back, everybody, to Way Past Due, the show dedicated to Otis Taylor, who is way past due for enshrinement into the Hall of Fame. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, here with my co-host and the engine that runs the Otis Taylor for Hall of Fame bus, Mr. Kerwin Terry. Welcome back, Kerwin.
How you doing, guys?
How's everything going?
Well.
Doing. And we kind of have a special. We got a special. For me, this is cool, man. We have a very special guest with us today. A Chiefs super fan and Otis Taylor super fan. Lynn Weirdwill Schmidt from Kansas City. He is at pretty much every game, every gathering. Also a Hall of Famer in his own right, in a certain way.
Hey, thank you so much,
Lynn.
man. I'm so glad to be here. This is awesome, and just got to do what we got to do for Otis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. We were kind of talking a little bit off air just about, the first time that you started idolizing Otis and you even got to meetings before. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about what the Chiefs mean to you and Otis
Wow,
Taylor.
I was raised on a small dairy farm in the middle of Kansas. We really only had a little black and white TV and we didn't watch a lot of stuff, but I got really engrossed into the football scene. I started getting trading cards at the local store. And at that time, I didn't really have a team, Chiefs, Vikings, whatever. They were all teams that I was kind of interested in. But the first game that I ever remember really watching and being totally tied to was the 1971 Christmas Day game, where it was the longest game in Chiefs history. Ed Podolak ran wild. Otis Taylor had a good game, but not one of those real remarkable games of the year. But it was just one of,
and that was his best season
1971. So, it was at that point that I became a Chiefs fan, and that's when I really got into it. And I just idolized those guys: Otis, Buck Buchanan, Bobby Bell, Willie Lanier, Ed Podolak. They all became my heroes at that time, and it was after that game that I just really became a football fan and could not miss any of the games coming up. So,
right. So you're a season ticket holder?
Yes, I have been for a number of years. Even before I was a season ticket holder, I went to all the games for a number of years. So just buying tickets on the fly.
Was it hard to get a season ticket, I guess?
Not initially. Not initially. It didn't take too long to get a season ticket. Back in '98, that's kind of when I started going to games and when I moved to Kansas City. So it was not too difficult, but I could always find a ticket. There was always that last second ticket I could buy before I went into the games.
Okay.
Well, what are some of your most memorable games that you've been to, I
guess? It's funny. The most recent one, of course, is the Buffalo Bills game that was a remarkable game, and
I thought the Chiefs were going out.
Yeah,
I thought they were going out.
They were done. We were sitting there, my son and I were almost in tears. 13 seconds left. We're like, oh man, there's no way. This just isn't going to happen. And then boom, 13 seconds later, we got into overtime with the field goal. Of course, we thought for sure he was going to miss that kick, but he made it. And into overtime, we won the coin
Wow,
flip,
man.
straight down, touchdown to Kelsey, and it was, the place erupted. It was just such a phenomenal game, back and forth by both quarterbacks. So
I tell you what, I was watching from the catwalk. It was just one of those that, because you thought, oh wow, because the Buffalo played so good.
Guys,
and
that game, actually, they wound up changing the rules behind that game as far as the overtime.
Well, the new overtime rules are based on
yeah.
Now, they didn't reverse that when that happened to the Chiefs a few years ago, but they switched it now for Buffalo. So okay.
And I say that because when Otis was in the skirmish with Davison, they changed the rules after that game. So it's quite a different. Well, it's quite a connection that I'm trying to make. And Chiefs are a part of at least 2 rule changes that have affected the NFL permanently.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's been more than that even that they've been involved in, but those are 2 distinct ones for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I had no idea. Well, so obviously, folks, anybody who's enjoying this, I'd like to ask, go ahead, like and subscribe. We're really trying to get this show is about Otis Taylor for the most part. There's some other Hall of Famers or potential Hall of Famers out there that we are really interested in getting in to the Hall, but none of them more so right at this point than Otis Taylor. I think that myself and Kerwin, we've really, really thrown everything that we have into this and finding a way and getting out to enough people. Something to, but to do that, you've got to build traction. You got to build, a following. It's only been going on for a little over a month. So it's been something that we're working at. But, if you like this, if you're enjoying the content that we're giving you, we talked to Ken Houston last week, last night's episode with Bryce Pinson, we're putting out content pretty much every day. So give us a like, and share it with your friends. And particularly if you're a Chiefs fan, and a fan of Otis Taylor, get it out there for us. We'd appreciate that. But somebody who's been instrumental in this, and I know that Kerwin and I both wanted to publicly thank you, is Weird Wolf. You've done a lot for us. You've done a lot of the graphics and stuff that we've used and, helped us out a lot. I particularly like that. I know that came from the guy from Japan, your friend, but those 2, the white one and then that new cartoonish one, have been great. And then obviously with the mailer postcard that we're making available to everybody, we just really appreciate that. We wanted you to know that. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to bring you on, is that you have been a big part of this campaign in this early stages. And
well, Otis deserves it. And that's, I'm willing to do anything it takes to get him in. I'm wearing a jersey right now that has Bobby Bell, Buck Buchanan, Willie Lanier's numbers on it, and then Otis Taylor's number on the front. He's the only one that's not in that hall with that group of guys. And you got Emma Thomas and Len Dawson and all these other players that were part of that team, and Otis was left out, and that's just wrong. And it's completely wrong. And I can't understand why he is, but he's more deserving than a lot of the people that are already in, or at least should have been in his time frame. Maybe not more deserving, but should have been in his time frame rather than being held back as long as it's taken. So I'm happy to do the art and the graphics and to be involved in this movement.
Man, well, you're very talented at it, by the way. So so we appreciate it, but and we need more people that not necessarily they're going to do work, but to share and and to really to talk about it. So for you to get on board with it, I know you have a big following yourself. We've really appreciated that as well. And, but tell us a little bit about, getting, I know you said that earlier that you met Otis. So,
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was right after I moved to Kansas City, and I saw an ad somewhere that said Otis, and I think there might have been some other players there as well, but I can't remember everything. But Otis Taylor stuck in my mind, and I was so excited to go see him. As an 11-year-old, watching him play ball for those number of years that he was there with the Chiefs. Yet, for me, it was like meeting that ultimate hero, the one that you really wanted to see and meet. And I went down to the mall, and Otis was there, right. And he visited for a while. He talked to all those of us that were around. There weren't a whole lot of us around at that time, but
sure.
It was just so cool to see him. I was pretty much speechless. I was like one of those starstruck teenage girls at that moment, just going, "Oh my gosh, this is my guy!" And he was so calm and friendly and willing to talk. And he signed my jacket. I had a coat that had a little white arrowhead on it, and he signed the white arrow. And he said, "Oh man, that didn't come out very good at all." So he took my coat and he signed the inside lining nice and big, So I still got that. So it was very cool to meet him. And I met him a couple of years later at some other Chiefs events as well, where he autographed a hat that I got, So he put his little signature on there.
Oh, man.
And at that point, he was already starting to lose some of his motor skills with the illnesses that he was dealing with. So. Yeah, so
Parkinson's, yeah.
So it was a little difficult. I think it was one of his last signings that he really was involved with. So, yeah,
wow, and that's the thing is, and like you had said, it is, to us, it's a shame, and that's what I mean. We're not making anything off of this. This is something that we're doing because we want him in. Kerwin is actually a part of a group that kind of got this started from Prairie View A&M, and one of the guys that's a part of the group is a very good friend of mine from Las Vegas. So I just somehow I was a sports writer for 10 years. So I got kind of asked about a website that turned into this. But long story short, Kerwin and I have jumped headfirst into it and are just, we're on it every day. And to me, I think that, first off, this ridiculous narrative that he wasn't as good as some of the other guys that the receivers from his generation, because they may have 400, 500 more yards, or even 1,500, 1,600 more yards. Well, the guys that do, like one of the things that I had written down earlier was that, say, Biletnikoff. Biletnikoff is good, but, at 136 games, he had, 360 receptions. He was behind him in touchdowns, yards, and receptions at 360 at 136 games, where Otis played 130. It took him until 149 to reach him in the catches. It took him until game 153, I believe, somewhere in there, 153, 154 to catch him in touchdowns. And then he didn't catch him in yardage until the next game, 155, 154, 155. So, this narrative that he wasn't among the best at his time, he was.
He absolutely was.
And
I remember both those guys. Yeah. I hated Biletnikoff, because they were our arch enemy, the Raiders, man. We hated the Raiders more than anybody.
Of course.
And Biletnikoff he was the counterpart to what Otis was. They were both those two guys that you just watched. You knew they were going to make a big play, one or the other. And, like we watch Otis Taylor and Len Dawson, to me, are just like what to this new generation Mahomes to Kelsey is. In my generation, that was what they were. It was Len Dawson, Otis Taylor. That was the Mahomes Kelsey of my time back then. And absolutely, to think that Otis isn't in the Hall, and when I know that Mahomes and Kelsey will be as soon as possible,
sure.
And rightfully so, absolutely. But to leave Otis out of that equation, because he was easily one of the greatest receivers of the time.
Right. Right. And that's what I thought. To even, we've been looking through that and we've been combating that story also, but that's just one of the things talking about those guys. But, and then, even a guy like Lance Allworth, which first off, nobody is saying, we haven't once said that any of these guys that are in the Hall of Fame don't belong.
Bambi deserved this spot.
I believe they do. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely he did, but that being said, they're not more deserving than Otis. I mean, Otis had within 5-year period. I mean, his second year in the league was just unbelievable. I mean, to put up 1,297 yards, 58 catches
in the Hank Stram,
the stat that we've uncovered,
in a Stram. That's the thing.
In a Hank Stram offense.
Let's pound it.
Because even in a run-heavy era, they were particularly run-heavy. They were more run-heavy than the rest of them. San Diego generally threw at least 150 more passes a year than did the Chiefs. The Raiders were usually about 100. From
Raiders and Chargers threw the ball like madmen. So I mean, that was all about aired out. Yeah,
they chucked it. Yeah. Who did they call them?
LaMonica, Daryl LaMonica from the Raiders. Yeah,
LaMonica.
Yeah.
Just passed away.
There you go. Now again, I was born a year after Otis retired, so I didn't know who he was until after I became a part of this. And so there was really, I'm a Niner fan. I love Jerry Rice. But hey, I got to tell you, having watched all of this stuff, and I've watched so much of his thing, and I read his book. We've got his book here. I had to pay way more than this is cost on the back, but I read it and I love the book. But you know what? It's Otis has become my hero even. And absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, I know you have one, Kerwin. You even have it on a nice little thing in your living room area so that you can look at it. So that's cool. But again, even with me, I've become captivated by who he was and what he was. And so I can just imagine being younger and a kid, and that's my team, how I would feel about it, because that's probably how I am about probably Jerry Rice. But I'm also that way. I was just telling you, I got a Otis Taylor jersey on the way.
Absolutely.
It's supposed to be here any day now, and I can't wait. And I'm not a Chiefs fan, so it's kind of. I mean, I was pretty upset with the Chiefs from a couple.
I can imagine that hurt a little bit.
But it's a little stinger. So but even with that, like I said, this has been something for me that. Man, I just feel it in my bones. This has got to happen. This is something that we want to happen, and not only does he compare, and I feel like, well, I don't know if you watched the podcast that aired
I did
last
night,
but So to me, there's nobody, and even with what you've got. Well, Ken Houston said last week, and he played against every one of those guys in that era, and he's one of the top 100 players of all time. Best safety. I mean, if it's not Ronnie Lott, it's Ken. Those guys talk about that all the time. So, and he said unequivocally, he's the best. I'm gonna kind of go with what Ken Houston says. So how is it that the Hall doesn't? And this is why it's what keeps us going.
Yeah, and it's part of the process. When you shrink the seniors down to one and possibly two getting in on an annual basis, you're going to have this kind of backlog. Right. And Vahid Gregorian mentioned that there's up to 183 players that he says that you possibly get a look at. And when you have a situation where, let's say, a Daryl LaMonica passes a few weeks ago, and you've got a Cliff Branch.
Yeah, he's not in either. This is crazy.
But posthumously, that's no way for a family or even and the players to enjoy being inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's a sad situation, and none of them should have to live through that. I saw the pain in Drew Pearson's face when they did the video on him when he was rejected. And can you imagine the number of times that Otis Taylor or the other players who are deserving have to go through? These guys they're not our warriors technically, because you served in the military, Jason, and we've got to honor that. Okay, but our Sunday gladiators, they need to be honored also, and that's the way that they would get honored. And to open up the Hall of Fame to allow this dearth of players into the Hall of Fame is would honor them.
Well, I think
and
I think that
the other thing about that is that shouldn't the writers and the other people who are actually running the Hall of Fame, wouldn't they want to get more players in so that they can even enjoy it? Because at this rate,
tell the story, man. Tell the freaking story. Yeah. Tell the freaking story. That's what I want to say. Tell the freaking story of the era. You cannot tell the story of the merger era without Otis Taylor.
Yeah.
You can't. It's a museum, damn it. That's what it is. So, and you can't tell the story of that era without Otis Taylor. And he's in every other Hall of Fame that he could possibly be in. What? But this one he doesn't deserve? Come on, man. It's insane. He had to get to those other Hall of Fames by going through the same guys that he went through in the league.
Yeah, it's travesty.
Like I said, I don't know. Right. And I mean, anybody that you look at or that, has said anything anywhere, in at least publicly, and I don't know, I mean, obviously, Kerwin calls them the College of Cardinals over there in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that, they're all in secret and all that, which is another BS deal. I think that you should, if you are going to keep some of these guys out, and Vahe said something along the lines of that they are arguing with a great deal of, man, I should have to open that email to do it, but something about a great deal of, what was it? I'll forget. Anyway, and it pissed me off, man. I was like, what? So essentially that people inside the hall or the voters are literally working at,
essentially making arguments that were persuasive enough.
Very persuasive. Yes.
Something to that effect.
Yeah. Let me open this real quick. I will find it. In any event, my deal was that, like, man, come on. There's no way that you can actually, you can't tell the story. That's the biggest thing. So for somebody to sit there, and then the narratives have switched, because I think before we had the internet and everything was at your fingertips, you'd have to go down and look up his stats in the newspapers or at the library or something like that, right? Now that you got the internet, you got it, all that stuff. I remember as a kid we used to get those NFL yearbook books in the library in the kids. So we had all the teams, we would check those out. I remember that. It's now that I think of it. But now, and at first and they still talk stats, which is bullshit, because there's no way that you can, we're splitting hairs if we're talking about the differences in stats between even him and guys like, what's his name from the Raiders. Those guys, there's 1,600 yards difference there and 16 touchdowns, and he played 60 more games.
Yeah.
60.
Yeah. Talking about Biletnikoff.
Biletnikoff, yes. So in order to, if you're going to talk about that kind of stuff, then you're going to have to tell me why. I got to hear why, because it's, to me, there's no other way. How did Vahe say it?
The stats between those guys, like you were saying, you can't cut it at that. And with a Super Bowl win, AFL champ, AFL
titles.
That should be enough. That should be enough for Otis to have made it in by now.
And you know what else, Lynn? It's the eye test. He passes the eye test when you see him on film. That's To me, that's the bottom line.
Those videos that you guys clipped together, I think you guys did, or somebody did, of Otis's plays. When I rewatched that, I was just like, oh my gosh! I just, as a child, you do.
I get goosebumps
it's
watching
like watching any of the modern big receivers that you see right now. He's high stepping, he's tapping the toes on the sideline. He's doing all those things.
Yeah.
All these big time receivers do now, and he was doing it in a time when it was hard to get open. You were getting beat up and pounded, and it took something. And so for him to get the stats that he had,
and no gloves, he didn't. Right. He wasn't wearing stickum or doing anything like that, like those other guys were. But no glove, and he was doing the OBJ catches before OBJ was born. So before when his dad was a little kid, you know what I mean? So that's silly to me. No, that was the words that Vahe used, was that there's a wide variety of opinions, and well articulated, I'd add, and about the best way to proceed. But again, to me, I don't think that there's any way that you can actually say that, because first off, as Kerwin has pointed out, there's a difference of the wide receiver position in and of itself is underrepresented at the Hall of Fame by 13%. Is that what you said?
13%. They're underrepresented by 13% on a 22-man roster.
Huh. And if you just think about Terrell Owens, and I mean, not everybody knows he was a pain in the ass. I get it, and a lot of receivers are. But what I feel like is going on up there is you got these. Never mind what I'm going to say that. But a guy like Terrell Owens, you can't tell me that guy wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. You can't. I don't care how much of a pain in the butt he was. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer. Just like Randy Moss should have been, and I think he was. But for him to not even go in on the second time and have to wait until his third, and he's number 2 in all-time yardage. What the hell?
They're punishing him for his bad behavior. That just goes to show you. But
but that's also, they make a point to tell you that even trouble with the law or anything like that doesn't have anything to do with the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So it's pretty sad. So, but again, I digress. Anyway, we are going to continue to fight. This is something that is very important to all of us, and I know to you. So that's something that we're going to continue to do, and we appreciate it if everybody would like and subscribe. That deadline is coming up for nominations. Now, where will he actually, the postcards that are on our website, that's Otis Taylor, OTISTAYLOR, 4 HOF.com. You can go in there and find it also on our Facebook page, which is OT 4 Hall of Fame. That's going to be on our Facebook page. We also have them in there as well that you can go get in there. You can download one, put your name on it. We've already got it pre-written for you even. So you can do it that way. We're going to add a couple of more variations of that here in the next day or so, or actually by the time this airs, they should be there. But so you can get those anywhere. At this point, it's, June 1st is the deadline. So you got to get them mailed in. And whether you get a postcard or not, send it in. We're also going to make available some talking points, some important pieces of information, like these stats that we've kind of uncovered. By looking at the stats and the difference in the amount of passing that the Chiefs did versus the amount of passing that everybody else did. But not only that, the modern era player has playing 16-game seasons and now 17-game seasons. And so they're being judged on a completely different – they should be being judged on different planes. They're not. So if these numbers are they don't look great to everybody, well, then we have finally uncovered this stat, and I don't know why anybody else hadn't done it in the past, but, we can weigh a season. We can weigh a career even. But so from what we're looking at, a guy like, say, Torrey Holt, I had this example earlier. His 2000 season, he had 1,635 yards. guys. 16 under 35, great season. That's his second year in the league too. But the Rams had actually, they were throwing the ball. They threw the ball. If we were comparing it to the 71 season, which is your favorite season, that was the year you became a big fan. Those 71 Chiefs threw the ball 337 times. That was just attempts. The Rams had 380 completions in 2000.
Yeah, huge difference.
Yeah, completions. Yeah, they threw the ball 570 something times that year. So, I mean, fellas, if we're going to do it, so on top of that, they had 16 games. If you look at Otis' season in 1971, where he became the UPI MVP, he was second in the Associated Press MVP awards. That 71 season, if you gave him Torrey Holt's catches and let him keep every other average of his own, his 19.5 yards per catch, his yards per game, it's going to change the yards per game, but it's his own averages, his touchdowns per reception average. Not even really weighing the difference in how much they threw it, but even the two games, just the two games. If you swapped those two players and Torrey had to play the 71 season and Otis had to play the 2000 season with the Rams, Otis would have been 36 yards behind Torrey's actual number. He would have had 10 more touchdowns. Or no, 6. Well, he already has one more touchdown. In 14 games, he had 7 to Torrey Holt's 6. But he would have jumped up to 10 based on the way that these stats work out. So you're looking at, and that's a top 20 season by a receiver in NFL history that Torrey Holt had in his second season in 2000. So he would have been in the top 20. Otis would, if you weighted it, it's a top 20 all-time season. His 66 season would be number 1, no matter which metric you look at or who you put him up against, including Jerry Rice. If you went season to season with him and Jerry Rice, him and Michael Irvin, him and Calvin Johnson, him and Cooper Kupp, it doesn't matter who we're talking about. Otis would be number 1 all time.
That's amazing.
Even up against Allworth himself. Allworth would probably be number 2 on all of those. But, hey, listen, if you can look at that, and if I can find that, why the hell ain't they finding it there? And we're going to keep talking about this stuff. But, I'm done with my soapbox. Let's talk a little bit about you. Lynn, I was going through some stuff last night, and show us your electric football is your thing, and I know you're a Hall of Famer at that.
Yeah.
The miniature
Football Coaches
League.
Association is what it was. I actually ran that association for 10 years. We have electric football. This is a little miniature Otis Taylor. I don't know if I can get them up there close enough they can see, but they're only about a little over an inch tall. But he's got the double face mask, the screwed on 2 single bar face mask, and I got a whole bunch of squads up here. Everything from this is the Super Bowl squad. I'll try to get them up in there with the Vikings as well. So all the starters at least in there, and they're all in amazing deep.
So you recreate that?
Detail. These are actually painted by a guy named Michael Weingartner, who's lives down in Texas, but he is one of the top painters in the hobby. But yeah, we play electric football. It's been a great hobby, and it's a very competitive sport.
I watched that show on ESPN, or on YouTube anyway, but it was the ESPN show last night.
They came down to Jacksonville when we had a national convention down there and shot that. And I got to do my Weird Wolf gig down there and also run 65 toss power trap for them. And we sent Mike Garrett right through the blocking hole, man. It was a perfect rendition of it. And the ESPN piece is pretty cool. It was a monumental part of my life to see that piece come out on ESPN like that. So very special time. Yeah.
Super cool, man.
But Yeah, we've learned
cool.
how to make those guys go where we want them to go, and it gets very competitive. And of course, I only play with Chiefs. I got like 20 different Chiefs teams sitting here. So
that's so cool, man. Well, see, and I know, like, I was born, it was already out. But I think by the time I started, video games were getting popular whenever I became a kid. So I had a set. I don't remember that it worked with the crap. So, it just kind of moved around and stuff. But when I was watching you on that, I was like, he just ran the freaking play. I was like, how does that
It was
even
our
happen?
Madden. As kids, we just let it scrum. It was a scrum. It was rugby. It was whatever. But as adults, we all, how we get with our hobbies. And a bunch of adult men, and we want to relive our sports achievements or the ones that we didn't have. So we get to play it out on these little fields, and we've learned how to make the strategy work. So it becomes very highly competitive. Our national champion lives right here in Kansas City. He's been world champion 2 years running now, Kelly Newton. So it's highly competitive. There's crazy guys that play it all across the U.S. and even into Europe. So, yeah. Yep.
Didn't know any of this, man.
Yeah,
I guess I would have saved my electric football set and been competitive at this point in life.
Oh yeah, because, there's still time for you. Yeah, you can still get in.
I've been told that I had a badass football team. I had the Chicago Bears. I had Gale Sayers.
Oh yeah, the Kansas Comet.
The Chiefs' #1 draft choice in '65 too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Right.
He just.
Oh wow! So he went to the
Bears.
Yeah, he chose the NFL side.
I didn't know that.
Across the walls up here, all your old electric football fields are hanging up here with stuff stuck to them and hanging over them. But it goes all the way around the room. So.
All right. So there's still somebody manufacturing
there's a company called Tudor Games that still makes all of the products, and they've actually got it running. They got some nice 2 foot by 4 foot sets now that run really, really well and are fun to play on.
Wow.
And we make all of our own custom stuff too.
Yeah, I'd like to try it again. I'd like to try it again now that knows
I can teach you everything you need to know. I do custom field covers. So like this is a field cover that we did of Old Municipal Stadium. I don't even know how much of that you can see, but that's an old Municipal Stadium field that we did. And we can do just about anything. I love doing the historical fields. That's a lot of fun.
Jason, I think we'll keep you in the dark on that one.
You want to keep me in the dark on that one? Why? Because you don't want me to beat you? Is that what it is?
Oh, here it goes. See, you're already starting. The competitive attitudes are already coming into play.
Hey, man. And believe me, we're both competitive. And that's probably a big part of why, like, I get more mad than I get anything about this deal with Otis. I'm like, I'm not having this.
The book is The Need to Win. And winning is certainly a part of why we do this. And, the reason, one of the reasons after reading the book that makes me continue to go every day is that he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. And,
sure does.
That's
deserves it,
and he's been passed over for all these years, and there's no reason for it. So,
I would agree with them. And that's the whole thing is that again, that's what me and Bryce were kind of talking about. I mean, they're splitting hairs on this stuff, guys, to keep certain guys out versus certain guys. I mean, the same thing with like Harold Jackson. I mean, that dude has 10,000, almost 11,000 yards, and he's not in. So what's the excuse?
Do you wonder sometimes because so many players from that Super Bowl team have made it in, Curly Culp and Emmett Thomas, that they're saying, oh geez, we can't put more in, or others are going to be looking at us like,
I guess, but I don't understand that either, because if you look at all the Super Bowls, well, aside from, I know with me being a Niner fan, I can't believe that Roger Craig's not in. How the hell is he not in? The guy's the first dude to ever have 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the season, and he did it all the time.
Yeah, I just don't get how they missed some of this.
Again, he was one of the best players of his era, and they're keeping him out. I don't know. It's me and Bryce kind of talked about it last night, and it seems like a lot of these guys are African American, and it's pretty clear that there's some stuff that's still going on in that. And I know that the temperature around the country is not great right now. And so, but it never has been, if you think about that. And I could think back at the time when he should have went in because, well, you take a guy like Lamar Parrish, another guy that's damn sure should have been in. This is an 8-time Pro Bowler. He's been 3-time All-Pro cornerback. I mean, and the only guy he was ever scared of, he said, was Otis Taylor. He said that guy would burn you or run you over. And, I've seen him say this multiple times, that there wasn't another receiver in football that worried him, but he knew if he made the littlest mistake, Otis was gone. And so, and then for him to not be in as well. And he also went to an HBCU like Otis.
So, Jason,
and they don't even talk about him at the Hall of Fame. They don't even bring him up in conversation.
I remember Lamar Parrish too from back in the day. So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
You've got the racial component, guys, but it continues to be layered because you've got the HBCU and the racial component. Then you add another layer onto that, the AFL.
Mm-hmm. The AFL layer. That's absolutely
right. How can you keep people like Daryle Lamonica and John Hadl out of the Hall of Fame?
John Hadl's not even in the Hall of Fame? I didn't even realize that. My gosh.
No, he's not. And generally speaking, usually if either the quarterback or the receiver, whoever, they usually go in with their quarterback or receiver, And I think that really Hadl and then Otis would probably be the only two. Well, and then obviously LaMonica, that these guys were in, and they were all AFL guys, mind you, that only one of them are getting in, and you've got a guy. I mean, but that's a bullshit narrative there, because you had so many of these guys that were choosing the AFL over the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't, Mike Garrett, hell, the Chiefs didn't take him until the 20th round because they didn't think they had a shot. He had already gone to the Rams. He played at USC. Why come to bone chilling at KC when you can stay and play in sunny California? He did.
Joe Namath. Yeah, I was just going to say him.
And the same with Bobby, though. Bobby went to the University of Minnesota and got picked by the Vikings. Bobby Bell. So for him to, and I think they took him in the 8th or 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th round, something like that. The Chiefs did. They didn't think they had a shot. He chose them too. Left his place where he had been living for a while. 2-time All-American.
The AFL opened the door for most of the black players. The Kansas City Chiefs, especially, were one of those teams. So
absolutely. Well, yeah, because they had the judge. Yeah. The judge was getting them all in. That was, you talk about an amazing scout. Right. There's another man who should be in the Hall of Fame.
Lloyd Wells.
Absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame without a doubt. His effect on the AFL in particular and the Chiefs cannot really be overstated, I don't believe. So for them to not have him in the Hall as well, I mean, there is definitely that AFL bias is real, but I also feel like that AFL bias kind of limits itself to the black players, and that's sad. It's sad that that's where we still are, because I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know who Otis was, but I wouldn't. You know what I mean? I didn't start watching football till I was 9 or 10 years old. Really, I mean, it was always on, but I mean, I didn't care that much about it as a little kid. And then once I started playing and stuff like that, and 9, 10 years old, we're out playing in Thanksgiving and different stuff like that, throwing the ball around. Okay. you know, but I was a Niner fan, which pissed my dad right off because they're all Cowboys fans. But, you know, but I mean, I can remember Jerry Rice like that. You know, I remember when I, you know, started paying attention that it was Montana to Rice, you know, and then later, obviously, Steve Young, you know.
That's another.
And I also remember the Broncos.
That's another combination, Montana,
you know,
Montana
they
to Rice, you know, Dawson to Taylor. It's the same thing. Yeah. It was all they're the same deal.
Absolutely. And imagine them throwing the ball like the way that, like if they were running that Bill Walsh offense over there with those two guys. I mean, the numbers, I mean, Bryce was talking about, you're like, could you imagine what Otis would have done if he switched places with Jerry Rice? You know, and I mean, what would have been the differences? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't, and listen, I'm not going to badmouth you. I love Jerry Rice. And I don't know what Otis would have done in comparison, but I can't imagine that it'd be a whole lot different. You know, and there's, you know, I just can't. Because everybody I look at, the first guy I looked at that I thought, this is who he seems like to me, be like Megatron.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson. And then you think, well, when Mr. Houston the other day brought up DK Metcalf, and I was like, that's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, big, fast, you know,
could you imagine
like that? I guess you.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
Is that a good comparison?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead. No, I said, would that be a good comparison as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely.
I'm sure you've seen DK.
Yeah. Could you imagine Otis on Eric Coryell's Chargers team? They might have gone to the Super Bowl if he'd have been on there. Yeah, they'd have been throwing the ball to him nonstop.
Absolutely,
because they were just flinging the ball continually around out there. Yeah,
my gosh, those guys. Yeah. Oh man.
So, but yeah, DK Metcalf's a perfect comparison. Although Otis seems to be a little more together.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the other thing is like for all the pain in the butt that some of these receivers are, that I can't tell that was Otis Taylor ever.
I have no history on that whatsoever.
I can't tell that was
like he was always a team player and always part of, you know, just doing what he can to win.
Well, in his book, you know, him saying that, that was in his book. He was like, he didn't care that they didn't throw it more. He did his job. You know, I think that he wanted to be a Hall of Famer. I think that that's clear from the book. But I think that he was being sincere when he said he'd rather have a ring than be Allworth in the Hall of Fame and not have one. You know, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's fair.
I tell you what.
Yeah. So, and that is more reason to want him in the Hall of Fame.
Character.
You know, that it mattered more to him that those guys, that his teammates and him won that thing than it did whether plus that touchdown, I mean, good grief. They threw it about 5 yards.
Yeah. He sprinted down the field.
You know, and he turns it into a big one.
It. I mean, it was just absolutely beautiful. I'm just so sad I wasn't watching football in 1970 yet. It took me a year later, so I missed that Super Bowl altogether. But, you know, you watch the highlights and that stuff. I mean, they still show that play over and over and over again.
That's the only one you see. I saw a Super Bowl special.
I call it the bookend to the AFL because that was the year of the merger.
Yes,
and that play closed the book on what was known as the AFL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and like that was the other thing we were talking about the other day was that if the AFL was so inferior, why the hell did you merge with them?
Yeah.
You know, if they were so inferior, why'd you merge?
So,
you know,
there
first
you go.
8, 4-4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and really take out those two Green Bay ones, and it's lopsided completely because honestly, other than so what the Cowboys and the Colts won, right? Were the other two of the 4, but they also got beat during those times too by AFL teams. So out of those first 8, like I said, really, if it hadn't have been for the Packers,
and up to
they win
halftime of that Packers game, it was still an open competition. You know, it was after halftime where the Packers took off. So
it is. Yeah. I was telling Kerwin that and I've read about how even Hank Stram said that he was the worst called game he ever had.
Nerves.
You know, that they called the worst offense ever. Yeah, I think. Yeah, you're going up against Lombardi. I can see that. You know, and Lynn Dawson didn't play well, and I think that it was part of.
God, if we'd have won that game, just think it might be the Stram Trophy now instead of the Lombardi. Who knows?
It might be. It might be. But the thing about it with that was they were already dominant, though, man. I mean, nobody was beating them in the NFL either. So you can say whatever they want. They just got done beating up on the Cowboys.
They were a force
in the Ice Bowl game or whatever. Won it to Ice Bowl.
So
yeah. So you know, they'd been kicking everybody's butt for a long time. So they beat the Chiefs, and it was handily, but then they did it again to the Raiders the year after that. And I don't think the Raiders were ever really in that game. So, you know, but as soon as he left, then the Vikings were supposedly just so superior. And
Grant,
I mean,
the purple
they weren't in it.
The purple people eaters, and
they
got ate up. I mean, that Chiefs defense kicked their ass anyway.
Those were two of my favorite defenses of all time. The purple people eaters and you throw the Rams fearsome foursome in there too. But the Chiefs, man, Yep.
Yeah, well, the fearsome foursome was that with
that was
Merlin Olsen,
Merlin Olsen,
Merlin Olsen, Deacon Jones.
Yep, yeah,
Deacon Jones, the head slap guy.
The sack inventor.
Yeah.
You also had.
He looked like, hey man, that guy was scary. The way even like after football, the way he would talk about, man, that dude is scary.
Those were beasts. I loved all of those teams at that point. I mean, it was just those defenses. Woo.
Those defenses were dominant.
Man, I'll tell you. Yeah. And in today's game, you know, it's making it for, you know, the defenders are just at a total disadvantage now, you know, and I love to see, you know, throwing the ball around and doing stuff like that. But, you know, when you're taking it out of their hands, you know, to be able to play the game right. And listen, I get being able to protect these players too. I'd like to see them kind of fix some of that stuff. But, you know, that's what's sad to me for a guy like Otis Taylor. I mean, he said it in his book, and you see it on film. He didn't go out of bounds. You know, he was not going out of bounds. He was going to try to run through you, past you, around you, but he wasn't going out of bounds. And he'd take a hit, and he didn't drop footballs either. So, man, that guy. I mean, I'm serious. That he really is become my hero. I'm like, man, this guy is unreal. I got so angry at a friend of mine last week telling me that he wasn't better than Michael Irvin. I said, shit. And that's what made me find this stat to uncover that may change the whole
that's
thing.
The thing.
So I was.
There's got to be somebody at the hall that will stand up for him and really bring all these stats together and make a really strong presentation to that group to show them what they've missed all these years and why Otis belongs. And I know in past years
Well, I would think a guy like James Lofton would be great for that. You know, he was the leader for a long time until Jerry passed him. You know, obviously Hall of Famer guy, and now he's in there voting. Somebody like Lisa Salters, though, as well. I mean, she's being a journalist and also being a woman of color. You would think that she would want to. I mean, I'm not going to say a whole lot. I'll leave that to you, Kerwin. But like. For instance, I mean, plus she's amazing, but she should be able to say, hey, she's got enough clout and pull in that room that she ought to be able to say, hey, look at this and look at this. And I think I can't be the first person to notice this stat. There's no way. If I am, then great. But you know what? There is no way that you can deny it because even, to be honest with you, 30% of the passes went to Otis. 31% of the completions of the year of 71 went to Otis Taylor. And for even all the throws, it was 17% of his completions were for every throw he had. So, and those two numbers were so skewed with him and Torrey that he would have had 10% more catches than Torrey Holt,
right?
If everything is equal. Whether or not you argue that or not, I don't care. Because even if you just give him the same amount, you better believe that you can give him the same amount of catches as Torrey Holt had, or Michael Irvin had, or even, any of these guys, and Jerry Rice included, that he could have had those same amount of catches. And with his yards per catch, he is right up, even his career yards per catch is going to put him right near the top of all-time players, period.
Yeah.
His yards per catch for his career is higher than Jerry Rice's by almost 3 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all time, if we were to weight it like that, all time it would be Lance Allworth probably.
Right.
But Otis would be right behind him.
Yeah. And Lance they were throwing the ball at Lance constantly. I mean, that was the offense.
Yeah. 150 more passes.
I mean, you look at we just got done with the draft, and if you take Otis's size and speed and character and all those things that he brought in his college career and put him in the draft right now, there's no way he doesn't go first round or second round, high second round. Yeah,
no
first
way
round.
He goes first round. Well, and you look at even his draft position in the AFL.
Yeah,
he was number 29.
Yeah,
that's first round now.
Yes, absolutely. So there you are. So, it's a travesty that needs to be repaired.
Ken Houston told us he threw a ball 100 yards. Ken Houston told us he threw a ball 100 yards.
That's up there with Mahomes.
I was like, what? Yeah. He could rip it, man. And he was a quarterback up until Kearney got there.
Well, they got there the same year. And they were in camp and they were throwing the football around. And I don't know. Well, Kearney was throwing the ball, I think, 80 yards, and Otis threw it 100 yards. And
holy cow! How can anybody do that? It's just nuts. I mean, just for
insane.
Just for the best quarterback in the world, how do you do that?
I remember seeing Michael Vick throw one time. I remember seeing Michael Vick when he was in college throw it, and he let it go. And then I'm thinking back to my childhood, and like John Elway was the dude with the cannon then. Him and where he'd throw it through you.
I don't say his name.
He don't use tattooing his guy.
That was the first thing I
that was wondering where that was coming.
Something like that. We don't go there. That was the first word my son said was Elway sucks. So wasn't mommy, wasn't daddy, it was Elway sucks. So there you go. But that's just a personal.
What gets said around there a lot.
I wonder where you got it from.
I can't stand the freaking.
What was that, Kerwin?
I can't stand.
I wonder where you got that from. Your children.
What was being said in that house when he was saying.
Yeah, when you talked about past football games, I remember I wasn't at this game, but the Montana Elway game. Oh my gosh, when Montana brought it back at the end. That was one of my happiest moments. So, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was in Denver.
Because I was still kind of upset that they had let Joe get away.
Yeah, Joe and Marcus Allen, that was such
and it almost didn't happen here.
And then DT, Derek Thomas. Yeah.
And wow. Yeah. I can't even imagine Derek Thomas, man. Yeah, and I can't even imagine that. I mean, obviously, Bo Jackson was incredible. But can you imagine, letting go of Marcus Allen if you're the Raiders? What the fuck are you thinking? You know what I mean? Keep them both.
Baffling.
Keep them both. What the hell was he doing? But yeah, that's to me that was pretty wild. This is the time I remember in the history of. But I'm getting to where I'm really enjoying this history stuff and getting it back. I was a history major in college, so that works for me. But I'm loving it, and just going back and having been a sports writer, I like to look at these things. But I'll tell you what, Roman said that to me, my friend, the other day about that. I agree that he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I don't know why you're putting him up against the best receivers of all time. And I said, because he's one of the best receivers of all time. And I snapped at him. I was pissed off, and it just made me go into I went on to Pro Football Focus, and started looking and looking and looking.
Made him develop a calculator.
Yeah,
it did indeed. Yeah.
So now we'll be looking
I was doing that for a day and a half.
From the looking at football from an NBA perspective, we're going to be looking at usage.
Yeah.
Thanks to this young man right here.
Wow. It's thanks to Roman. Roman, now you are. You know who you are, buddy. You know what I'm talking about, and I'm fixing to wear you out on that Michael Owen stuff. Wait, that's coming. So, yeah, that should probably be out
awesome.
in a matter of days. And guys, again, we're talking to Lynn Weird Wolf Schmidt. Kansas City. Yeah, hey, listen, I was fixing to ask you. We need to get a howl.
We'll do that
but
at the end.
Before we do, if you like and enjoy this, if you like and enjoy all this content that you're getting, folks, please get us a like and subscribe. Again, the biggest way, we definitely need to get more letters out. Can you imagine if those voters got there and they had bags and bags of mail? That would be just, and it's all Otis Taylor mail. That would be perfect. But to do that, we have to get more traction. And by the way, we are doing great in the group is doing fabulous. I've got quite a few followers, I think, because of Weird Wolf on Twitter that are seeing a lot of our stuff as well. And thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate the boost. I was a brand new Twitter account, and
I've not been a big Twitter guy either,
or having followers at all. Yeah, but you've got a ton of followers, So, but I went from 0 to 700.
Nice,
pretty much like that. Now I kind of leveled off there, but
we need to do another
leveled off there. But that was the main thing. Is I learned about you on Twitter because that first video I did was I was trying to figure out what I could find out about Otis Taylor, because I'm like, why are they this old dude? I don't know anything about this guy. Why do they think he's a Hall of Famer? He should have been in. Well, I go on Twitter, and then it was just page after page after page of it, highlights and and I'm sitting there going, and then there's the guy. I'm going to try to get a hold of this guy too. He had a Otis Taylor statue made of him getting the catch over Fisher, or with Fisher hanging on his back. So, man, that was cool. And that's where I saw you. You commented on there about how cool that was, and you guys kind of went back and forth. And then I saw the artwork you were doing, and it just, I tell you, I think it was actually that post that all that stuff ended up in was your tweet there with your graphic with Otis, with the red background, which man, and you do such amazing work with that stuff.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Thanks.
Very cool. But it was just something that at that moment, I was like, man, it's been freaking 48 years since he's played a football game, and they love him there.
Yeah. Anybody from my era, I'm 61. And you can talk to any of the people that I hang with, the people in my age bracket. It's a no-brainer that Otis should have been in the Hall. And most of them are baffled.
Every tweet,
not.
Every tweet, it says that travesty / shame. It's a shame. It's a travesty. But everybody mentions the Hall of Fame. If Otis Taylor's name is on it, Hall of Fame is right.
People deserve to know his history, and from now till eternity, and that's what the Hall of Fame's about. And he's got to be part of that picture.
Yeah, Lynn, so many people our age say the exact same thing. I thought he was already in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
that's it. A year ago, I was saying the same thing. I said this exact same thing almost a little over a year ago. He's not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
What's wrong with this?
Yeah, and just like my ex-father-in-law, whenever I asked him if he remembered him, I said, do you remember a guy named Otis Taylor? And he was like, man, do I remember him? He goes, that guy was like the first big, fast, what we call a prototype receiver now. He said, that was the first one. He goes, and he was nasty. And I was like, yeah. And I said, he said, how's he doing? I said, still not in the Hall of Fame. He goes, what the hell do you mean he's not in the Hall of Fame? I swore he was. There's no way. And I was like, no. And it freaked him out. And that's where I think, that's why we are asking for all this support, is because I think that they're, like Kerwin said, so many people are unaware of this. And so we're not holding these guys' feet to the fire, the College of Cardinals, as he calls them, and which is a fair statement, by the way, because they don't have to stand behind their vote or, and explain it to anybody. It's all in secrecy. They don't have to tell you who they voted for and who they didn't. They don't even tell you numbers.
For that matter, who supported
They don't tell you.
Or didn't.
No, they don't. They just say who they let in and who they didn't. That's the only thing you ever see.
Puff of smoke. We know who's in the Hall of Fame.
The white puffs of smoke. Electing the Pope. We talk a lot of trash on here, by the way. But you know what? I think it's fair to when you have something that's been going on this long, and it's this clear that I think, as you said a minute ago, Kerwin, the eyeball test is all that really matters. But apparently, it's not. So we had to uncover this. Somebody needed to uncover this thing. But literally, that's the first. Bryce said it the entire podcast that we talked, and he was like, "Man, the eye test tells me he's great," And his numbers were great in a time that they didn't throw the damn ball, And again, at the 130, that guy on Core the other day, he made me want to look at that 130 game mark and see where all these guys were at 130 games. My guess would be, well, I know for sure that guys like, even Cliff Branch, I know for sure because he's only 1,000 yards or so ahead. Same with Stallworth. Hell, Lynn Swan didn't even he's 2,000 yards behind. Never had 1,000-yard season. He's in.
Yeah.
All those guys are in the Hall that were on that team. And again, rightfully so. They were insane good. But again, and I'm not saying any of these guys don't deserve it.
Can't deny any of those.
They do. But if they're in, Otis is in.
Yeah, he should be. Absolutely.
That's it. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And it's, we enjoy it though too, man. That's the other thing is I've had so much fun with this, man, and meeting so many people, and getting the chance to sit and talk with people like Ken Houston and you and then me and Bryce. We have fun with this kind of crap. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad to be a part of the group and try to help push this over the edge. So whatever we can do, Well,
we're grateful for you, man. We really are.
We'll keep pushing ahead and try to make this thing happen one way or another.
All right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Keep getting the word out if you would. I know I've been saying it to everybody, all my friends. Kerwin does the same thing. As many groups as you can get it in. Thank you so much for getting those. You printed off.
Yeah, I've got 100 cards coming. We got a going away party for a bunch of Chiefs fans. One guy that's moving to Florida. He's one of the old time. It used to be called the helmet heads. They had helmets that they wore that looked like cone heads, and he was one of the early days Chiefs fans, but they're moving to Florida. He's retiring. We're having a big party. I'm going to make every one of them sign. So we'll get a bunch of cards ready for that.
We'll probably wrap this up here. Go ahead, Kerwin.
One thing that we haven't mentioned is where to send those letters to, and send them to Selection Committee, care of Pro Football Hall of Fame, 2121 George Howells Drive, Northwest, Canton, Ohio, 44708. And again, we'll do that again.
I remembered it this time.
Selection Committee, care of Pro Football Hall of Fame, 2121 George Howells Drive, Northwest, Canton, Ohio, 44708.
And even though we may not have mentioned it yet, it's on the screen right here with us. Not to worry. It's been there all the whole time. So, and that's, hey, howl at him and let him go, Mr.
Everybody got to get Hal Rodas Taylor. Oh! Go Chiefs! Let's get Otis in the hall!
All right.
That's after awesome. Open heart surgery, just 2 months.
Your face turned almost as red as when you have your paint on. That's after surgery?
Wow, amazing, man.
Hey.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Hey, and we appreciate you being on the show so much and everything you've done. But thanks a lot for coming on. And anytime, hey, I'd love to talk to you. I'm planning on coming out there.
If you come out, we'll get together. We'll do some barbecue, hit the Arrowhead, do the tour. We'll do
barbecue,
it all, man.
beer.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Hey, I got my own beers named after me. So I got a Weird Wolf Red, and there's a Decibel Up Red and a Decibel Up White, which are IPAs. So we can set you up. We got lots of good drinks.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Hey, let's go, Kerwin. What are we waiting on?
Get out here.
You're right.
Yeah, we're coming. We're coming
we'll
soon.
Be there.
All right. Well, thanks a lot again for having for jumping on with us and talking and giving us your story about Otis again and for everything that you've done. We appreciate it. Again, folks, we're gonna keep doing these. We've got a few more of these episodes coming up before the June 1 deadline. Hoping that he's gonna get at that point down to the semifinalist area, which by then we have some more time. But for sure, coming through June 1st, we will be we'll be continuing this journey. And hey, we're not going to stop it until he's in the Hall of Fame either way. So thanks a lot again for joining us on Way Past Due. And
my pleasure. Good talking to you guys. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate you.
You bet. And one last word, Jet Chip Wasp. Does that sound good to you, Jason? Remember Jet Chip Wasp? That was the play that Mahomes threw to Tyreek in the Super Bowl when the 49ers suddenly took a fall. I'm number one.
That might have still been recorded. That still might have been recorded there. Jet Chip Wasp. I don't give a crap what that play was. No, good for hey, look. One thing I'll say is that it's kind of hard to not root for a guy like that.
Yeah.
And Andy, I mean, I was actually when Andy.
Anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.